Good afternoon. Welcome to the Owlbear Inn. Normally during this time slot, you'd be here for another episode of Nightbane. But right now, we are currently on pause as we are quite busy this month and have a lot of things going on. So instead of just skipping episodes, I've decided, to do just a little recap to help you understand what's all been going on throughout the episodes in the campaign, and a little bit more about the Nightbane system. Normally, though, you will be able to find Nightbane here on Saturday afternoons at 4 p.m. Mountain, and we will be resuming again in August. Until that time, let's do a little quick recap. Now, Nightbane is based on the Palladium tabletop RPG system. I really have enjoyed the Palladium system. I've played practically every tabletop RPG system that's out there and enjoy quite a few of them. Don't get me wrong there. The one thing that I really do, though, like about the Palladium system is its scalability. In other campaigns or in other systems, I always seem to find that there's a point where you've played the characters for so long, they become so powerful, it really starts becoming difficult to find challenges or reasons for the campaign to go on. You've hit that max level, you've defeated all the main bosses that you're going to do, why continue? Whereas in the Palladium system, they have this ability to scale and to scale and to scale again. And it really makes it hard to outlevel your character in campaign. If you get to a point where most everything is too easy and there's no reason to continue on because you're just too powerful, you just introduce the next scale of beings, creatures, adventures, and it's basically like a reset almost. But it still gives the player the feeling of continuous progression and continuous development. I myself have played in Nightbane Palladium campaign system that went on for 5 years real time, and we had a blast. It really kept on just going and scaling, and we just had a fun.
Football bugger. Oh, that was fun.
So I decided to come back and reintroduce this here at Owlbear Inn and run a Nightbane campaign. Right now it is loosely based on our previous campaign that I did have. I'm using that world because it was quite fun, quite interesting, but I do have plans to go beyond where the previous campaign left off. So it's going to be quite interesting when they get to that point to see what they do. The Nightbane system itself is based on a world where some extra-dimensional beings called the Night Lords have created a parallel dimension that mirrors Earth. Kind of think of it as Earth and this dimension existing practically almost in the exact same space, time, but just in separate dimensions. The dimensions are separated by what's called the mirror wall. And of course, as the name would suggest, the way you travel between these two dimensions is through mirrors.
It definitely is a lot to reflect on.
Now, the basis on this world and this campaign setting is the Night Lords have set up this mirror Earth and have got quite a huge force there, and they want to take over Earth proper. Now, the Night Lords do not want to do this invasion as a normal invasion would go that most people would think. They're not a military force, even though they have a very huge military force. They're not just going to invade and kill and take over, because they actually want the humans alive. They don't want to kill them in a war, and they want the resources of Earth. So instead, they are doing it by infiltration and slowly taking over the governments of the world and other organizations in the world to basically eventually bring everybody under their own rule. In the process of doing this, the Night Lords did make one mistake. And what happened is, while they were trying to do this takeover, and they take this over by the way, introducing doppelgangers, minions of the Night Lords and the Night Lands, this parallel dimension, that are identical to a human. They create this doppelganger which looks, talks, acts exactly like a human counterpart and replace them. That's how they're infiltrating the government and taking over the world. Well, through this process and through this traveling of the mirror wall, they did make a mistake and inadvertently created what was called the Dark Day. Now, the Dark Day was a 24-hour period in Earth history. Varies based on campaign. But during this 24-hour period, there was no light in the sky. It was a dark day, as the name gives. There was no sunlight, there was no stars, there was no moon reflection, there was no light. And you can probably pretty much guess the way humans reacted. It was the end of the world. It was the apocalypse. Everything fell apart. But luckily, it was only 24 hours. And then the human race believed what it would believe. There's conspiracy theories across the board as to what that dark day really was. But for the most part, they picked up with their lives again, praised the Lord for saving them, or whatever they wanted to believe, and continued on. Unbeknownst to the majority of the population of Earth, is that some humans during this dark day became what's called Nightbane. Now, Nightbane, the easiest way to think of this is take any horror movie that you like, love, hate, fear, whatever, and take any monster, creature, being from those movies, and that is a Nightbane. It could be anywhere from Pinhead from the Hellraiser series to werewolves to aliens to anything your imagination can make up. The Nightbane character creation system is incredibly dynamic and complex, and you can create a monster however you feel like.
And a tail that moves on its own accord, basically.
As most tails do.
Mm-hmm.
She flicks her scorpion tail.
I look down at my rear at that little nubbin of a tail. You know?
Aw, tail envy.
Tail envy. It's okay. Maybe you could get one someday. Who knows?
Maybe you can ask the neighbors for one.
I think I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you, though.
The interesting twist is, though, Nightbane are actually the good guys. Even though they look hideous and will scare any human white. I mean, most Nightbane, you can imagine, are the worst of the monster branch. But they're still human. They still are inside the way they were before they turned into Nightbane, before they became Nightbane. And they, through the campaigns, usually learn that Earth is in jeopardy of being taken over. And they are the main force trying to stop the Night Lords from taking over Earth. Now, the Nightbane, there's a lot of lore, a lot of history, and a lot of conflicting information as well. When they become a Nightbane, the humans who become Nightbane don't know what's going on either. They don't gain a vast knowledge of history or understand what they are. They just know that they can become monsters. And this is a change that happens at will. They can control whether they look human or they look like a monster. But they don't understand what's going on either, really. So the campaign is them trying to get together, understand who they are, what they are, why they are what they are, and how to try and combat and possibly even defeat the Night Lords and save Earth from being overrun and taken over to become a resource for these Night Lords. Now, that's in general. For this campaign, we started off with two players, JP and Vaughn. JP played a character called Cook, and Vaughn played a character called Maximus. And they started out in the Colorado wilderness, which most Nightbane do try to severely avoid populated areas. One, because the NSB, or the government agent that the Night Lords created to replace all the other alphabet organizations, the NSB are hunting Nightbane, of course, because they didn't want them created. They don't want them fighting them. So they are actively hunting Nightbane. And as well as the rest of the human race. I mean, these are monsters, and that's the only way they see them. They don't know that the Nightbane are trying to help them. They see Bigfoot, Sasquatches, Loch Ness, aliens, werewolves, whatever they see when they look at a Nightbane. And most of the time they either run or they try and kill them. So Nightbane tend to try and stay out of the limelight in the wilderness, away from populated areas, because that's where the NSB and the rest of the humans are. So Cook and Maximus met up in the Colorado wilderness and formed a very loose relation. Hey, we're both trying to survive, and traveled together. They did meet up with a local resistance group. This local resistance group was, of course, other Nightbane who were, again, just trying to survive. They did have more knowledge, though. They were trying to, quote-unquote, rescue other Nightbane, help bring them to a safe spot, give them what information they knew about how and why and what they are, how it came to be, and just try and keep them safe. Cook and Maximus did help them for a little bit, went on a couple missions. One of them definitely was a trap. They got out of that. Most hilarious. You need to watch those episodes if you want to catch that up. And just traveled with them for a while, on and off. Eventually, they did meet up with a more professional military Nightbane group. The more resistance, but very military-based, very resourced, much more knowledgeable of what was going on. A global resistance group that had bases all around Earth, and offered a lot of structure and a lot of safety. These bases were well hidden. They don't know how the bases were created. And they also served a dual purpose. Those Nightbane who wished to help fight joined the military resistance proper. And those that did not wish to join the fight, just wanted to try and live their lives in somewhat peace, this resistance group also had sanctuary bases where, they were hidden and safe. And they could, even though it was a secluded area and they really couldn't leave, it was a safe place for them to be, if they choose. And of course, the resistance group did not force any Nightbane to do either of these options. It was always up to them. But it gave them a choice. Now, both Cook and Maximus joined this resistance group proper, on the militia side. Cook was more of what would be called a magic user in this system, dwelled with magic, which is rare, and again, of course, the rest of the human population doesn't know anything about it. Just think of it as the way you think of Earth as now, lots of idiots, politicians, lawyers, and things like that, but no such thing as monsters or magic or anything like that, vampires or aliens, only in the movies. So even being Nightbane and being a magic user was a double rarity that the militia definitely could use, and promoted Cook fast. Maximus, on the other hand, was more of your melee type. Loved to get in there with his claws and tear people apart, and when necessary would also use guns. Now, they joined them on many strikes, rose up through the ranks, but the separation between Cooks and Maximus grew. They just had two different opinions on how things should be going about, and whether or not the humans even deserve to be saved. Because again, the humans are humans the way we are today. We fight amongst each other, and they didn't want anything really to do with Nightbane and usually tried killing them on sight. So why are we trying to save them? They didn't have enough of the backstory of understanding the interconnectivity that was needed to make sure everybody survived. So Maximus and Cook went off on their own ways, and Vaughn actually rolled up a new character that would be more in line to Cook's ideas, was also a magic user, and would be easier to get along with together. And I just say, just to make sure everyone understands, this was just character conflict, not actual player conflict. They were just playing their characters the correct way and right, and it just happened naturally that these two characters did not get along. Now, Vinny, Vaughn's new character, being a magic user, definitely was way more in line with Cook's ideas. And we also had our third party member join at that time, Zelda Elf. She played Kikit. Kikit was a spoiled brat, to put it nicely.
Hey-o, daddy-o.
She was Egyptian and a cat, so also kind of believed she was a goddess already.
Well, of course. When you're this gorgeous, why wouldn't you flaunt it?
And had lots of family history to uncover. And you need to watch those episodes because it was quite interesting. But the three of them met up on what was called a mission where the Night Lords were trying to actually establish a stronghold on Earth in Area 51. Now, up to this time, like I said, they were more infiltrating through doppelgangers into the military, into the government of the world, creating new laws, new government agencies such as the NSB. And so they were more clandestine at the time, but they do have a very strong military force in the Nightlands, and they were starting to bring them into Earth. So, of course, the military resistance had to try and stop this. So they launched a global attack, or attack from all of their global bases simultaneously to Area 51 to try and wipe them out. This was a very bittersweet battle. The Nightbane were technically victorious at Area 51. They did kill everybody that was there and stop the stronghold. But the problem was this was actually a very elaborate trap. The Night Lords knew that the resistance would come here from their bases and use this as a way to be able to try and track back where the Nightbane resistance was coming from, and then launch simultaneous attack while the Nightbane resistance was attacking Area 51. The Night Lords with the rest of their forces attacked the bases. So even though the resistance did win at Area 51, they actually lost 95% of their forces, all of their bases, and unfortunately all the sanctuaries where the non-combatant Nightbane lived.
The location is no longer valid.
What does that even mean?
It means the dimension no longer exists.
The dimension?
It means
Yes.
What?
everything's already been crushed.
They've destroyed our bases. All our bases are belong to them.
It doesn't belong to them. They simply just don't
They're gone.
exist anymore.
That demolished.
Okay.
The
I didn't
bases don't
realize
even
that they were
exist.
a different dimension.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The bubble went boop.
Oh no.
And we'll let the astrophysicists or quantum mechanics people figure out what happens when that happens. If anyone wants to venture some ideas, go for it. But the bubble popped.
Bubble.
Lived. They were all wiped out. It was a very huge loss for the Nightbane. Technically, very set them back quite a bit. Very sad. So it didn't definitely feel like a victory to them. They went on, made contact with Gaia, which when I say Gaia, I do mean the planet Earth, the intelligence that is Gaia. They made contact with Gaia and were able to get a temporary base established where Gaia provided them, so that it was still somewhat hidden. And there, they pseudo-separated from the militia. The militia didn't actually kick them out or separate these three. What they told them was, look, we have lost almost all of our resources, 95% of our strength. It's going to be quite a while before we can mount any type of resistance again, or try and attacking the Nightbane or the Night Lords again. But you three, Cook, Vinny, and Kikit, are the strongest of us, so why don't you go out and do your own guerrilla resistance on your own. As far as the rest of the world is concerned, even though they don't know Nightbane, you're on your own, and we'll support you however we can, but go figure it out. And that's what they did. They went out, started doing their own missions, some quite hilarious. You definitely have to check out the episode where they took over a TV station and basically destroyed a newscaster's life in the most horrible way, but funny.
I'm not taking the complete fall for this.
Too late, it's already been done.
You're an asshole.
I know.
But they went out on their own. They got more knowledge, more lore, more information from Gaia and from another Nightbane called Anubis, who ends up being basically Anubis from old Egyptian mythology, a god. They learned about celestial beings and about gods. They learned a lot about lore of the universe, and they learned a lot about what is behind the Night Lords, how the Night Lords can be killed and yet a month later they're back again, and why it seems to be like a never-ending battle. They themselves, the characters, again, the way I talked about this beautiful Palladium system scaling, all three characters now on their own have become celestial beings, even though they're, again, the baby celestials, not knowing what's going on, not really knowing how to use their powers. But
Pretty sure I'd be insane right now if you weren't here.
Oh yeah, easily. What's funny is Kit Kat already knows.
You serious?
Yes.
Do it.
What he quickly does. So, good luck, and he pushes you in.
Oh shit, motherfucker. Oh shit. So, look, wait, hang on. Ah!
Why is it sticky?
but they are understanding more lore, understanding how they can contribute to this war against the Night Lords, and how other celestial beings, including Anubis, are going about doing a part to try and end this once and for all. So now they're at a point where they can pretty much handle their own against the Night Lord. They can't just go in and just willy-nilly take them on and shoot caution to the wind, as you would say. It has to be very planned and very particular, but in the right circumstances, they can definitely get the better of a Night Lord now. And they are still growing, they're still figuring things out, and it has been quite the pleasure and quite the fun to see these characters grow over time, and they've got so much farther to go because they haven't even got to the end of where the previous campaign world stopped, and where I've got so much more planned for them once that point hits, just to see what they do next and where they go from there. So that's a good recap. I do invite you to catch up on all of our past episodes. You can catch them on our YouTube channel. Just check out our social media links to find that link. And I hope to see you here again. Again, you can catch Nightbane episodes every Saturday, 4 p.m. Mountain Time. And we'll enjoy having you once we pick back up our regular schedule. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.
Cook. shows back up in the normal world at 9 a.m.
Football bugger. Oh, that was fun.
May have closed for now. We hope you met a friend this go around. Tired and blurry you may be. We hope your minds are full from this revelry. Peace follow you out. May you return for more giggles and shouts.